not going to resolve it. On this episode of Chords and Coffee, we're talking about suspended chords. What is a suspended chord? Well, you've probably seen, looking at a chord chart at some point, the letters S-U-S next to your favorite chord symbol. That is sus, or suspended. And what is all the fuss with sus? Well, that's what this episode is about. We're going to talk about sus4 chords, sus2 chords. We're going to talk about dominant 7, sus4, and often overlooked dominant 7, sus2 chords. I know it sounds like a lot, but it's not. And it didn't mean to rhyme, but it happens sometimes. And then we're also I'm going to give you like a little funky blues thing that uses suspended chords that might be helpful in kind of jazzing up an old blues tune that you have, or something that's in that, realm of funky blues. So without much further ado, let's just get right into it. A suspended chord. This is different than like an add, when you see like an add 9 or an add 11. This is different. A suspended chord is, instead of playing the major third, we're just going to play the 1, the 4, and the 5. Well, what does that mean? Well, for instance, let's say I'm talking about an A chord, right? And we're going to do an A suspended. If I'm doing an A suspended, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are the notes that are in the A major scale. I just want the 1, I just want the 4, and I just want the 5, right? And what you get is something like this. Now, maybe the first time you've heard this, let me get my pages right here. Maybe the first time you've heard this is the old, like you're standing in church somewhere and you hear, Amen. For me, the first time I heard this was, there was a song called Signs. And this was the first song I played live in front of people. Jordan, did you know that? That was the first song I played. Jordan's running the camera back here. The first song I played at my high school talent show my sophomore year was Signs. At that time, the band doing it was Tesla. It's originally by a Canadian rock band called Five Man Electric Band. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but it was, and the signs say the long-haired freaky people need not apply. That one, but it had this intro. It was like, right? And there's a ton of songs that do that. So we're talking about sus chords, and sus chords have built into it a couple of quick givens and understanding there. If you're playing in a group and the music director calls for a sus, 9.9 times out of 10, they mean the sus4, okay? The sus2 is this fantastic chord that just uses 1, 2, 5, okay? So again, like in the A example, instead of 1, 4, 5, it's going to be 1, 2, 5. And that chord has this whole other, what I'll sort of say is a utilitarian benefit, because it neither has the major third, if you're, a Viking, the major third, or the minor third. It's just this kind of ambiguous chord. And there's some really cool harmonic things you can do with that. But first, let's just make sure we got our sus4 chords down. So let's just start. Here's E sus. And I'm not going to resolve them, so this may be painful for you. You'll make it through, I promise. All right, so you're going to have your, let's start with our middle finger here on the 2nd fret of the A. Our middle finger, middle finger, 2nd fret of the A, and then ring finger, 2nd fret of the D, and then pinky on the 2nd fret of the G. I had to resolve it. I couldn't take it. Anyway, and then here's an A sus4. Right? So this is going to be your index finger here on the 2nd fret of the D. You're going to have your middle finger on the 2nd fret of the G. And then your pinky is going to be on the 3rd fret of the B. And then, check this one out. This is kind of a cool one. This is a C sus4. A couple different ways to look at that. I'm going to give them both to you here. One way would be just put your index finger on the 1st fret of the B. You're going to have an open G. And then on the D string, we're going to be, instead of on the 2nd fret, we're going to be on the 3rd fret with our pinky. And then our ring finger is going to be on the 3rd fret of the A. You can also go ahead and just lay that index finger down and cover that F that's on the high E, so you get, a double sus. Somehow out of all of them, that's a little more tolerable, and I'll tell you why if I can remember to here in just a second. There's a reason why your ear goes, it's not too bad, okay? The next one, D sus4. I mean, when you hear that, it's instantly like, hold your head up, or a ton of different songs, right? This is all over the place. There's something about the way this chord is created. We all just find that is one of the first little chord tricks that we do, right? Well, here it is if you haven't done that yet. It's going to be index finger on the 2nd fret of the G. It's going to be ring finger on the 3rd fret of the B. It's going to be pinky on the 3rd fret of the high E. And then if you wanted to resolve it, just bring it back down to that 2nd fret. Now, the one we started with here, the ultimate church chord, G sus. This is going to be ring finger on the 3rd fret of the low E. I'm going to not even worry about the A because the angle of my ring finger is dampening that A string. But I am going to have the G open. I am going to have the D, the D and the G open. And then my index finger is going to be on the 1st fret of the B. And then my pinky is going to be on the 3rd fret of the high E. And that's all of your basic sus chords. I get all sus chord out and I get all antsy here because I just demand resolution, therefore coffee must be consumed. What do you do with a sus chord? Well, most of the time that sus chord is going to appear in your life usually as the 5 chord, wanting to turn around to the 1 and give you a greater sense of tension. But that sus4 chord also, just a second ago when I did that C sus4, that same grip, because there's 2 Fs in that one when you're laying your index finger down, it really is almost an F chord. And the sus4 chord, another way that really comes in clutch for us is, you know, if you're sitting on this, like a G, for example, there's a lot of songs that have an intro that basically rhymes with what I just played there. A sus4 chord really allows you to kind of let that 1 chord have some breathing room. Stretch out a little bit, right? And it's just a great way to not only create a little bit of tension to get you back home, but also create a little bit of tension to let the moment elongate and last and hang around just as long as it possibly can. So sus4, a sus chord, and a sus forward, a suspicious Ford automobile, are very useful. I thought that was funny. Was that funny? Jordan gives me a thumbs down. He didn't even pay attention. All right, anyway, so moving on. Sus2 chords, a little different, right? Instead of, in the case of this A, instead of having the D note, the 4th, this is going to have the B note, the 2nd, right? That's going to be an open A string. That's going to be, your middle finger is going to be on the 2nd fret of the D. Your ring finger is going to be on the 2nd fret of the G with an open B and an open B and an open E. A little more ambiguous. Is it major? Is it minor? Neither, right? How about a, I don't know, let's take that same grip, and we'll come back to the open voicings here in a second. But just so you know, if we were going to do like an E sus, so let's take that same A sus shape, and then we're going to do it up here. So that's going to be index finger on the A string, 7th fret all the way to the high E. And then you're going to have your ring finger on the 9th fret of the D. Pinky's going to be on the 9th fret of the G. And human capo's holding down the rest. So that's an E sus2. Other sus2 chords. Here is a C sus2. This is kind of cool because you have a lot of open strings next to the root, and so it creates kind of a rule of a rub. It's kind of neat, right? So you're going to have your ring finger is going to be on the 3rd fret of the A, open D, open G, index finger is the 1st fret of the B, and then pinky is on the 3rd fret of the high E. D sus2, how about this one? This one is incredibly useful, especially with the bar, and I'll show you that in just a second. It's going to be index finger on the 2nd fret of the G. Your pinky is going to be on the, well, you can use your ring finger on the 3rd fret of the B, and then an open E string. Now, if we wanted to make that like an E sus2, and we're going to make it as a bar, a couple schools of thought on this. I could do it just on the D string as far as my bar goes with my index finger, or I could take it all the way to the A Either way is fine, but I'm gonna do it on the D for this right here. And so I'm gonna have a D, 2nd fret, all the way to the high E, straight across, human capo, just a little bar. And then the ring finger is gonna be on the 4th fret of the G, and then pinky is gonna be on the 5th fret of the B, and the high E string is held down by my human capo. So that is an E sus2. Let me give you one more here. A G sus2 is gonna be like this. That's gonna be ring finger on the low E string, 3rd fret. Index finger is going to be on the 2nd fret of the G. And then ring is going to be on the, I said ring finger, middle finger is going to be on the low E of the 3rd fret. Index finger is going to be on the 2nd fret of the G. Ring finger is going to be on the B string, 3rd fret. Pinky, high E, 3rd fret. So with all of those sus chords, there is a lot of cool stuff you can do with that. Those sus2 chords, take any chart you've got, especially if it's just your standard 1, 5, 6, 4 sort of thing, or even just a 1, 4, 5 chord progression, right? And substitute a sus2 chord for that. It'll work every time. It's a different harmonic thing to do. Maybe you don't do it on every chord in the song, maybe just on one, right? Maybe you don't do it on every song. Maybe you just have one song that needs that treatment, but it's a cool treatment. Let's move on to dominant 7 sus chords. All right, I'm going to give you this, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you a couple of these, and then I'm going to show you kind of like a little cool bluesy thing using these dominant 7 sus chords and dominant 7 sus2 chords. Full disclosure, there's been instances in the past, even on Chords and Coffee, where I've given a chord name and I've just said omit the 3rd, and I haven't thought of it as a dominant 7. I've actually thought of it as like a 9 chord just without the 3rd. So as I was researching for this lesson, I realized, oh my gosh, I've been playing these dominant 7 sus2 chords and not even realizing. I just thought it was just like a 9th chord, which technically it is. Hey, one of the things, at least in my experience of playing guitar, is that we are constantly looking at symbols on a page and interpreting it. And not only that, but depending on who you're playing with, you kind of got to learn the language of that tribe, right? In some bands, if they say, go to the 3, that may be, the 1st chord, 1st inversion, right? In some bands, if they say, go to the 5 chord, maybe they want a dominant 7, maybe they just want a straight 5. You got to learn the language. That's why I'm giving more than one chord name for a lot of these chord voicings and taking so much time to kind of delve into the weeds on this sort of thing. So without further ado, here's a dominant 7 sus4 on an A7 sus4, right? It's going to be index finger on the 2nd fret of the D, pinky's going to be on the 3rd fret of the B. Down A7 sus4. Here's an E7 sus4. This is going to be just 2 fingers. You're going to have your middle finger on the 2nd fret of the A. You're going to have an open D. You're going to have your ring finger on the 2nd fret of the G. Now, how about a D7 sus4? You're going to have your index finger on the 1st fret of the B. Boom. Your middle finger is going to be on the 2nd fret of the G. Your pinky is going to be on the 3rd fret of the high E. Open D string, not playing anything else. Now, if we take that A7 sus4 and put a bar on it, like on the C, that's a pretty useful chord. You will play this a lot. I promise you this comes up. So this is going to be just a bar across the 3rd fret. And I mean this grip. I don't necessarily mean just a C7 sus4. But this grip is really handy. 3rd fret, human capo from the A string to the high E. And then you're going to have your middle finger on the 5th fret of the D. Your pinky is going to be on the 6th fret of the B. Right? Now let's do a G7 sus4 just like this E7 sus4 we did. Just put a bar on it. 3rd fret. 3rd fret from low E to high E. Your middle finger is going to be on the A string, 5th fret. Pinky's going to be on the G string, 5th fret. All right, so now let's look at some dominant 7 sus2 chords. And this is where we get into, we're going to sort of venture into this little funky blues thing here. I'll show you real quick. But first of all, check this grip out. We've talked about this before on Chords and Coffee, but here it comes again, and I love it. It's one of my favorite grips. This is going to be an A7 sus2, right? You're going to have your middle finger on the A, 5th fret of the low E string. Your ring finger is going to be on the G, 5th fret of the D. I'm skipping the A string altogether because I want the shape to be movable. And then my index finger is going to be on the 4th fret of the G, and then pinky is going to be on the 5th fret of the B. Now, if I want to do a D7 sus2, here's this guy. It's almost like a D9, just minus the third. That's really all it is. Or you might say, Nate, that looks a whole lot like an A minor over D. And friend, you are correct. It's just another way to think about it, all right? So I'm going to have my ring finger on the 5th fret of the high E, the B, and the G. And then I'm going to have my middle finger on the A of the 5th fret. I can do the exact same thing. Speaking of A minor over D, just make an A minor here. Or in this case, just do a bar. So human capo on the A string, the 5th fret, all the way to the high E. And then throw your ring finger on that D string of the 7th fret. And then here's one more. Let's do this as an E. This is an E7 sus2, right? So I'm gonna have my index finger here on the 2nd fret of the D all the way to the high E, and then I'm gonna have my middle finger on the 3rd fret of the B. Ring finger is gonna be on the 4th fret of the G. All right, and so with that, I'm gonna play like a little funky blues thing, and I'll just put the shapes up. I just played most of these shapes. I'll go to the G, actually I'll probably go to the A sus4 to this A sus2, right? So A7 sus4, A7 sus2, and then a G7 sus4 to a G7 sus2. But all these other shapes will be in there. And if you like this sort of thing, if you enjoy a free guitar lesson every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Central Time on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button now. I'm going to play us out, have a cup of coffee, and most importantly, friends, live life the best you can with a guitar in your hand. I sure do appreciate you. Thanks for watching Chords and Coffee every Saturday morning here on YouTube. Y'all have a great week.